All right, recording.
All right.
Yeah.
Guess we back. So I got an interesting question. So I've been having this strange epiphany lately.
Yep.
Where, okay, I've been trying to learn about myself a lot.
Mm.
So I think maybe I'm starting to develop my shadow SI. But my thing is I've never liked to focus too much on the past a lot. But with the past few weeks, I've been really looking at the past a lot just because I've been trying to I've been noticing things some things I've been missing because I haven't been looking at the past. So where I got into this because I was watching this guy. You ever heard of Billy Carson?
No.
He's a scientist, but he's real smart dude. I'm willing to bet money he's an INTP. You know what I mean? Real intelligent. He's like a polymath. He's good at a lot of, but he's not I wouldn't say he's intellectual things. He has a lot of intellectual things. He's mastered a lot of different subjects and stuff. So he talked about ancient Sumerian tablets. He's talked about ancient civilizations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I got into that a little bit. It was a little interesting. So I'm thinking he's talking about where human beings came from. He was talking about how history repeats itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking okay, he said if you learn about history, then you don't know what's going to happen later because it all repeats itself over and over. That's really all that happens. So I'm thinking okay, maybe if I look at my past and know if I'm repeating cycles, you know what I'm saying?
Right. So
what do you think about that? That's inside.
Or just history in general?
Well, it started with history in general, just from him.
Okay. And then you narrowed it into your own path.
Yeah, and I started thinking myself. I'm wait a minute, what if I look? And I started looking at these old pictures of myself I found.
Yeah.
When I was kindergarten, first grade, and I started to think back, what was I doing back then?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was kind of strange because it's stuff I haven't thought about in so long. I think I have a pretty good memory. Mm-hmm. Even though according to who C.S. Joseph is, he says we think we have good memory, but I don't want to remember everything. I'm not gonna lie, I really don't, because some things are just not worth remembering. It's kind of wasting space in your brain. Yeah. So
it's like a blessing in curse, right? You can't remember.
Some things I find,
but things you want, you don't need to remember. You kind of let that fade.
Waste of space, yeah. Some stuff I find useful to remember because I might need the information. Mm-hmm. So that's how I look at it. Some people, depending on what it is, I remember it for a long time. So yeah. Pretty interesting though. You think that's shadow SI, or you think that's something else?
So I was going to ask how your SI critic usually shows itself. So when someone violates your SE parent, that's your bodyguard essentially, right? How does your SI critic pop up? Do you make yourself comfortable in the situation no matter what's going on, and you're just whatever option I need to do to just remove myself from the ruckus? Or do you actually go back to your safe place, or do you make a new safe place?
Yeah, I see that. Safe place. Because that's what I've seen. Okay, that's the one thing I've been learning about ENFPs actually.
Yeah.
When I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
They got a comfort, something that they go back to a comfortable place when they're uncomfortable, kind of, I guess. I don't know. But I don't know. Actually, I haven't thought about that. My safe place may be a hobby or something that but I would think that would have something to do with my TI and I loop on. Maybe that goes into it too, the SI critic.
So it might not be just an actual location. It could be an action, a company action. Okay.
Yeah, something that I do, I'm used to doing, yeah.
What are your hobbies?
I think that's what it would be.
And I'm still answering the question you asked me, but what are your hobbies?
My hobbies?
Yeah.
I work out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I like working out because I like being able to exert my body.
Yeah.
It's something I'm just used to doing since I was a kid. I used to go outside all the time as a kid. I just love exerting my body and seeing what my body's full potential to be. And I played in Portugal last time. I played overseas a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to play somewhere else, but I've gotten a couple offers and we trying to see how they do. But yeah,
so right off top, that sounds and I'm sure that's just one of a bunch, but right off top, that sounds like your SE parent is working with your SI, so it would make sense that you're recreating an experience, and that's your safe bubble, which helps because that's in your mind. You can do that wherever, right? It doesn't take too much to do calisthenics where you're standing or sitting. or whatever, right? Like your legs could be off the ground right now. You could literally be doing that as we're talking. But that means, as far as figuring out what you have done in the past, that's one thing you could be looking for, like when you do that and figure out what your triggers are. If you hadn't already known about like your positive incentives or your negative motivators, which I brought up last time, but I can remind you what those are this time around. But aside from that, I think the interest in figuring out your past had more to do with your ENFJ subconscious, which is related to your child function? No, your inferior function, right? So your inferior function, FE, says if I figure out certain things about my past, I can help other people work through their past, right? So the thing we talked about earlier before this recording, where it kind of helps me work through my problems, like when I do come to the catch-22, like the impossible solutionless issues I do pop up with, if I work on other people's issues with them. And in doing so, I inadvertently find the solution, and then I can apply that back to myself, right? It's just easier for me to do it for somebody else. But I could see you, like, working through things a lot easier if you recreate an experience that you usually use to work through things, like working out. Does that make sense? Or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
It's like fact checking me, right? But so what did you find when you looked at your past?
I kind of looked. I found out like I'm pretty much. I looked at my okay. So when I was a kid, I was a lot more free. Of course, I guess that's normal. But like I think I became more closed off. I kind of knew this already.
Yeah.
But I got to really see the difference. But I know in every picture when I was a kid, I used to smile at every picture. It was real big. Like I don't smile in pictures. There are people always tell me now, like you need to smile more. You know, smile in pictures. I hear that. That's all I hear nowadays. So I might smile in one picture. They'll be like, "Oh, I like your smile." You know, that's one thing. But I think my wall has gotten higher. I got ISTPs. We have a wall anyway. Either way, I would have had an emotional wall up for certain situations, social situations. If I'm not comfortable in a situation, I put up an emotional wall. I know my wall has gotten higher in certain situations over time, just as a defense mechanism, just to protect myself. I know like how different people can be. You know,
the pattern as different experiences kept happening, and so over time you were like, this gives me more reason to keep doing this, right? So then if we tie that in with your SI, when did you start working out?
Oh, that started, I say my first year.
Okay. So were you pretty happy that year?
Yeah, I like being able to change part, do something. Like I want to see what happens when I do this exercise or how big this part of my body is, just out of curiosity, Yeah. And I just wanted to fill out. I was skinny, like real skinny. And that wasn't a problem that I was skinny. I didn't want to get all buff. I just wanted to fill out. That's it.
The flip side of that is you could have said, no, I was actually depressed at that point in time, right? And then when you pick that up, it kind of balanced things out. So like in my younger years, without giving too much information, there would be pockets where things would be okay at school, but not so great at home, or okay at home, but not so great at school. It was rarely both okay 100% across the board in both cases, right? So I developed like a sense of vacillation where you kind of move from one location to another to try to make things equate, kind of. So it's kind of like you're walking from one end of a boat to the other end to try to stabilize it in rocky waters, right? But the problem with that is you kind of have to develop the discipline to go to the middle, in my case, and I never really did that until later on when I realized that was a thing you can do. So my pattern had never included that, so that was a huge issue for me at first. But it did explain why I would vacillate, why I would hop in and out of people's lives, why I would do certain things at certain times when I felt like it, and other times I would go back and act like that was a thing I hated doing, right? I would tell people this is my personal boundary, and then I would turn back around and be like, okay, but also why wouldn't you do that for me? And they'd be like, well, you specifically told me not to do that. And my inferior SI at the time, right? Everything's connected, SI style. It wouldn't even remember it until they said it. So that reference point is how my inferior SI works, right? That's where my SI works for me. Like, it makes me comfortable in that scenario, but then I forget that scenario once the scenario's passed. And then I'll go do something else, EP things. But for you, it was a stabilizing thing, so I can imagine things would get weird, and then you would just rock up, essentially. You would just like turn into a boulder. And you're like, okay, let me do this thing that makes me solid, and then everything else can do what it does, and then once the wave passes, I can ENFJ my way out again. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is that like right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I like feeling strong. Like I like it's not so much about. I like feeling strong. Like,
yeah.
Feeling like I could like do something. You know.
What happens when you feel vulnerable?
When I feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like in what way?
So like
emotionally or
mentally or emotionally or socially, or like where is life taking you in that point in time? Like, are there any commonalities when you do feel vulnerable, or do you even notice when you feel vulnerable?
I don't know. I don't think I notice it, honestly.
So for ITP,
maybe I'd have to think about it, but yeah.
Okay. Actually, keep thinking about it while we're having the conversation. If something pops up, it might help later. But ITPs, you mentioned your wall. It's stoicism, right? That's what your wall looks like, or?
You said it's what?
Stoicism, like being stoic, just like
stoicism. Yeah.
Either you can do something about it, or you can't. And if you can, have you done it? If not, then what are we worried about? Go do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't do anything about it, why worry about it? It's not worth thinking about, right?
Right.
So if that's the case, I think there might be like a flip side to that, because everything seems to have a contradictory, like, other side to that coin, where instead of being stoic, your superego might be like, there's so much going on right now that I kind of just want to hide or do whatever it is that makes other people okay with the situation, so I don't get blame, pushback, judgment, etc. So that could be like a perpetual state in the back of your mind at all times, or it could just be a button that people have to get to in order to push.
Yeah.
So possibly, that sound?
I think that does sound familiar. I'm just trying to relate it to certain specific situation. Probably just something that happened.
The next time,
like I take so much time to
The very next time it happens, you'll recognize it. Yeah, that's how these little seeds work. They sprout at the right time. But
that's like a lot of. I think that would involve a lot of my FE to figure out too.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't really think about my emotions a lot, but I am self-aware. It's not like the same way that people think of it.
Because your FI is your blind spot. I just wrote down your dot. You know I
yeah.
Yeah, your FI is your blind spot. So it would make sense that you don't even.
But people think that means we're not self-aware. We are very self-aware. Right. We look at ourselves like a specimen. Like, we look at ourselves and take ourselves apart like we take away a machine, you know? Yeah. That's what we do.
And then mine.
But because of emotions, so much emotions involved, we might,
The same.
Yeah.
Interesting. We just don't feel the need to focus on it as much because it usually doesn't require that, like whatever situation we're in. Is what I've heard, and then also what I think. But, interesting. So like a fully developed version of yourself, what does that look like to you? Or are you already there?
I think I'm way more developed than I was, because I know it was a point in my life when I first started learning about Myers-Briggs, when I first started learning about functions, I realized my extroverted sense was underdeveloped. That's the first thing I tried to double down on. Yeah. So I started to look at ESTPs. I said, I need to be more like them to develop my extroverted sense.
Why did you choose that? Your SE?
So what?
Why did you choose your SE first?
Because it had a lot to do with sports, because I was trying to get better at sports. So I knew also, too, it kind of played into that, too. But that was something that happened in my life that made me it did something to it made it so that I couldn't use my extroverted sense. I was kind of almost like, I went from being able to use my extroverted sense a lot until all of a sudden I'm in a situation where I can't really do too much,
So you had to look at your other cards at that point, but
I started developing my NI though. I did develop my NI real well. People tell me all the time. I've heard from ENFJs and INFJs. They always say, you got pretty well developed NI. Okay. Even though it's not developed like theirs, but They say it's pretty good for my type, usually. So that's good, but it's just, it's not the function I really need to have developed is probably SE over that,
Why you say that?
Helps me get in the flow state. Because I know during that period of time, I couldn't get in the flow with certain things. I would overthink too much. I thought I was an INTP actually for a long period of time.
Okay.
Probably for like 2 years. When I first got into it, I used to think I was an INTP.
Yeah.
Yeah, my SE was underdeveloped.
So that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah. So I was just writing down my cognitive stack, right? Because I know it, but the reference point outside my head helps me because, again, inferior SI, right? So I literally have my notes in front of me, but then boom. And I have like spreadsheets on spreadsheets because I never stop making notes and I put them in my computer and my scrolls essentially are my spreadsheets, right? But that's a habit I do. So pardon me as I write while you talk. I am listening. But what I just heard from you, and I don't know if that's how you looked at it, but I want to fact check with you as well, is you went with what you knew first, right? Your TI is in your DOM. You can't stop doing that. It's in overflow. So you didn't really have to think about that, same as you don't have to think about your FI, essentially, right? It's just on, and it's on so much that it's not really worth working on because it's already there in abundance. But then your SE, is what pops up when you soothe. That's your go-to, right? That's your ace in the hole. So that makes sense that you would work on your parent function first once you were aware of it being a thing that you could work on. Most people aren't aware, so that's a step up immediately, like to what they were saying about your NI. Because then that's on an axis with your NI, so when your SE isn't an option, you said the next closest thing to it is your NI, literally, it's your child function following your parent function. And then your desire said, well, if the way you would normally do things, TI, and what you would fall back to, your backup is your parent function, your SE, they're not options, then what do you want? And then we'll find a different way to do that afterwards, right? So your NI said, what do you want? Your NE said, Trickster, by the way, said, we'll find a different way to get it done. So I don't know if you actually got to the point where you were able to lean into what you wanted to get done and then find any way to get it done, but that would have been the next step. So is that something you've already done?
Yep, I know. If I'm understanding you, I think that's what happened when I was playing football.
Yeah.
And I improved a lot within a short period of time.
Yeah.
I talked about it on my channel once, but yeah.
So that.
But I used to I actually started to come up with my own drills to get better.
Boom. There it is. So that's interesting, right?
Techniques.
That's not something I was actually thinking about, but I'm going to think about it super hard now. What gets a person to activate their trickster in a positive way, right? So obviously it has to work with something because it's so low on your stack. It's your second to last function that you have to use it in tandem with something else in order to develop it, right? For me, I just use other people's brains, right? It's easier to just use somebody else's full stack than to try to use one of my other cogs, for me, personally.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm also an ambivert, so I can turn that on and off when I need to, and that boundary isn't really an issue for me because I can turn it off when I want to. But also, any DOM, right? So that's easier for me to do than most people. But that being the case, it would also make super duper sense that you would turn inward, which that's a healthy habit so far. But I hope you have the other half of that coin where you talk to other people as well for some of this. So, I think so. But you said, let me go with my primary function, right? And then you said, well, that's not an option right now, or it's not getting me enough because of my awareness of the situation. So let me get more awareness, SE, right? That's your backup. And then you said, okay, well, I'm confined in the moment. I can't really do that, which that kind of bothers your subconscious. So as you're going further down to your last few resorts, I guess, you're getting more and more agitated. So I'm pretty sure in the moments that you have to resort to these lower cogs, at least for your stack, you're kind of pissed off about it until you find a comfort level there where you're used to doing it and then it's not so agitating. So as you learn, as you're adding to the pattern, it becomes easier and your ENFJ can step in a lot more. There's more room for it to step in, if that makes sense, right? But there's no room for it at first when you're only doing ISTP things, right? So you're doing self-work, right? Your self-integration, and as you're doing it, you're working to make your ENFJ comfortable to come out. So by the time you get like halfway through your stack, you can now start helping other people. And if you get all the way through your stack, you'll be closer to your actualization, and then you can help all the people in all the ways if they're receptive, right? So that's what your development is starting to look like. So that's gangster. But this is fun for me. It's a puzzle. But then your NI and your NE work together, and that's how you got your NE on board, because nothing else can stand up for it. So that's its next axis to work with, NI, NE. So say, what do I want? Let's find new ways to get it done. And you did that. Then you were able to move back up to SE, experience that, try it out. Then you added it to your system, TI, and you were back to square one. You were where you wanted to be, right? So your FE is where we're at now, you said? Or you've already gotten that straight?
I've definitely gotten it a lot better, because I know now I'm a little bit more aware of, like, when things happen and you get like, say like people are like, like stuff happens, you get annoyed, people can be annoying you. I start to notice when it's building up, I'll be somehow. I remember when I was younger, I used to never, it would take so long for me to get mad about something. But once I did, it would be like too much. You know what I mean? I'm still very slow to anger. You won't see me, like, I'm not a very angry person. Like, I say I maybe get annoyed more than, anything. I'm still very even tempered. But I'm more aware now of that when it starts to, Yeah,
when it boils, and then when you come to question, do you have like the bottled emotion thing that a lot of SPs have in general, where you'll have something to say but won't say it because it may not be practically like a good idea or socially a good idea, but then once it gets to a certain point, then you just let it all out? Usually like over let it out?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I've done that before. Yeah. But it's like,
that's common.
People that know me, they can't imagine me getting angry. Like, a lot of people be like, I can't imagine you angry. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't know, I try not to, because then if that, like, I don't know, throws people off a little bit if it happens. But yeah.
I'm not sharing my screen. You said you
I would say that though.
Okay. So that's.
But SPs we do, it's like most of our anger, I think it would come from just being annoyed. I think it's really sensitive. Yeah.
So
it would come from stuff like that.
What would annoy you?
I don't know, like I know I'm gonna be honest, the other day this lady was rude. There's an older lady that was being rude, stuff like that. Kind of probably the same stuff most people get annoyed by, little stuff.
1 second.
Well, there's a lady at a front desk, it's some dumb stuff. It wasn't really
stuff that doesn't make sense.
Being rude, for no reason. Like, being rude for no reason, man. Like, it was an older lady, it was almost like a Karen situation. Like, But she wasn't like a white lady. She wasn't a white lady, actually, but it kind of was like a Karen type, even though she was black. It's kind of weird. But yeah, little dumb stuff, and over time, you run into people, they be rude for no reason. Like do little, kind of like the little, like, I don't know, like, I watch Personality Hacker. I used to watch them. They would talk about how we don't like, sometimes people play the little social games and stuff. And the ISTP, we won't like, dealing with that and stuff like that. It can annoy us,
Really?
Yeah.
What's annoying about that?
Like a little, like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's some type of social games, like, how you kind of got to play the little social games with people and stuff,
Yeah. Like mind games?
Most people, I think you probably be able to do it. You got tertiary in the feed. Like, you probably wouldn't like it, but to an extent, but you also be able to, like, kind of, it's like a game,
I can navigate it, but yeah, you're right. I dislike doing it. I think.
But it's just something, you got to do,
Yeah, social engineering people is, like, useful, but also, why do I have to, like, calm you down so we can get work done? Like, why in a professional setting, for instance, do I need to, like, woo-saw you and your temperament to let you know, like, hey, we're having a factual conversation right now. No one's taking jabs at you. Like, if you messed up, we're not here to judge you as a person. We're here to look at the action, figure out what was wrong with it. Mind you, I'm in IT amongst other things. So, like, this is a constant. Like, I shouldn't have to do all this extra coddling ISFJ things in order to get you to, like, stay on task.
Oh, man. That, like, makes me cringe. It does.
Yeah.
Like, when I had like an INFJ contest try to suggest something like that. So, like, on one of my videos.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why don't you just, it was something like that. And I'm like, no, I can't. It made me cringe. They say, like, objective personality, you know that channel?
Yeah.
He was talking about ISTP in the video. He was talking about, like, FE things. He said, I know it makes you guys want to vomit. And he was 100% right. Like, we get this, like, feeling almost like you want to vomit. Like, it's so, like, ugh. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, some of that FE stuff.
It's detestable. But then your TI is, again, in overflow, right? So I can see that trigger being real easy to hit because it's super duper easy for people to not make as much sense as you can make out of a certain situation. So there are certain types that irritate you more than others. You probably find the commonality, but it's because their actions are in the same category. It's irrational. It doesn't make sense. Their T is too low, essentially, right? So like people like us, this happened because we can cooperate, right? But there are individuals you can't really make the same stuff happen with because they don't know how to stay on task, or they worry about their emotions more than anything else, or whatever the case may be, right?
Sometimes it's the worst thing to do. You in a situation, I think it's like, I don't know, that's one of my pet peeves. That's like when, if there's a situation that's an emergency situation, and somebody's over emotional, like, and it's like interrupting us trying to find a solution. Like, oh my God, like,
it's funny.
That's the worst thing.
As soon as you said that, I thought about this this news article slash interview slash story or whatever. It came out in 3 different types of media. But the first time I saw it was a clip. This guy, probably a ISTP, had to be. He was on a plane. It was like one of those smaller biplanes, I think. But the pilot had some type of medical something.
This is talking about the one where he went and took the plane over?
Yeah.
Hey, objective personality was talking about that too. They said they think he was ISTP. It was somebody said it. I remember who it was.
That's what I heard it first.
They said they think it was ISTP.
Yeah, I was like, that had to be an ISTP. I was like,
they say you make good pilots. You seen Top Gun Maverick? I think that guy was ISTP, the main character.
Yeah.
They say we make good
pilots specifically, like aviation and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people think he was an ESTP, but I don't know. I think he was an ISTP.
So my officer class, the course or whatever, like some of them will go off and be aviators specifically, right? And the others will be technician. I'm a technician, but a lot of people in my class were aviators. So I think there were a lot of INFPs, INFJs. INFJs are good pilots. I actually have a number of pilot friends that I'm thinking about just now, like just realizing that, who are INFJs specifically. There's like the odd ESTJ, ESTP, and then the rest were ISTPs. All of them. Like that was half the class. Yeah.
I couldn't fit in the cockpit. I'm too tall. I mean, I thought about it doing it, but I'm too tall. He's like a jet pilot or anything. I thought about that, but I'm just, I'm 6'5". I can't.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That'd probably be cramped. I don't know though. I don't know what the cutoff is.
I didn't want to do it that bad anyway.
Have you been in the cockpit of anything, like a helicopter or airplane or anything like that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so like, if you get an opportunity, just like ride around in like a helicopter tour of a city or something like that, like St. Louis does that.
Oh, we got that, yeah.
New York does that. Yeah, so do that and see what that cabin space looks like. Because you might have more space than not, and then at a certain point in your life, you might want to just pick it up as a hobby or get a license or whatever it may be.
I can drive, bro. I'll tell you that. Yeah. I can drive.
Yeah, that'll work. I think TPs in general should be able to, but I don't know how INTPs drive all too well.
Yeah. They say, a lot of people say ISTPs, we make the best. I used to disagree with it, actually. But they tell you that we the best drivers. Sometimes I was thinking like maybe ISFJs were better than us, or ISTJs, though. But I guess, I don't know.
I'm curious to see how you get to that, logically speaking. because that's what I was going to look at before. We talked before about how an ISTJ might be like a really good person to have in a fight with you, what have you, in reference to your brother. But like, in my book, I literally did a list in 2021 for whatever reason. I told you, scrolls on scrolls on scrolls everywhere, just all over the place.
Yeah.
The ISTP is the top fighter, and then it would be, so I put STP in general, right? So it'd be like an ISTP and then an ESTP in my book. And then the ETPs are next in the sense that the ENTP would be after that, right? And onesies and twosies, obviously, but by and large,
it makes sense though.
Brain kind of matches what your brawn can do, more or less, right? And then the INJs, but that's not because everybody else is sucky. This is still on the upper half. The upper half are just that good at what they do, right? So then the INJs and INFJ will match an ENTP in a fight, depending on what they're fighting for, who's behind them, typically, right? Things you probably know well.
Yeah.
So then there's the INTJ, who can also match an ENTP, right? So the two of y'all, the STPs, are probably best in all of us when it really comes down to it, because you can outlast us, you hit harder, you move faster, this, that, and the third, flow state and all that, right? You just have natural advantages that most people can't touch. But then the rest of us being NJs or TPs, we can mentally catch ourselves up to that point, right? The only drag for a TP would be that we don't want to have to exert all that. So if you get somebody like The Rock, ENTP, or a CM Punk, ENTP, and they are in the culture where there is no option but to max out, they know what their left and their right perimeter is instead of just what minimum is and staying above that, right? So now they can accurately gauge and they can work out until they get buff enough, but still not have abs, because that wasn't in the cards for them, you know? The Rock. CM Punk, for instance, has a dad bod, but he's probably more fit than most people. I'm not jumping in the MMA range anytime soon, like at all.
Yeah, MMA.
Right. But
that's a tough one.
So then the list keeps going. The ENJs, pick whichever, but Paladin, right? Same type of situation as the INFJ. It depends on who's behind them, what they're fighting for, right? ENTJs, if it's about their experience, their SE child particularly, they will fight you to the end nail. And we already know ENTJs, the conquerors, they'll use whatever they can, and then they'll use whatever of yours that they can, and everybody else is around them, and the heavens and the earth.
You're aware of you're aware of the stereotype of ENTJs. It's kind of funny, but it's kind of like they always got the ENTJs as supervillain, you know? Like, you ever heard that?
Yeah, I have.
They make good super. I mean, it's not a bad thing.
The Adam Project. You know? Ryan Reynolds came out with a movie on Netflix as well. The main villain was an ENTJ, and she had altruistic means.
In real life, they're not evil though. You know, they're not like that in real life.
That's what I was about to say. Like, they had really good intentions, but they had to do some dastardly things to get it done, and they'll be the ones to do it. If it's not the TP trigger puller, it's the TJ who's like calling the shots, right? TJ shot call. I'm writing that.
They always like, you'll think like, this is what it usually is, the dynamic. Yeah. The NTJ or whatever, the NI, they'll be like the top in charge, but they'll be in the background. Mm-hmm. You'll think the ESTJ is in charge, but they just follow orders from somebody above them. Like, you'll think they're in charge.
The mouthpiece or a puppet or what have you. So then you have like after the ENJs, the STJs. So I would put the ISTJ above the ESTJ, because the ESTJ again is at the heart of it, just like an INFP. Essentially, they're trying to promote more than what they have in the tank, but they don't know they don't have it in the tank because they always rely on other people's what have you. So they're relying on you to not be able to match them in order to come with their victory. And if that's not the case,
that's introverted thinking, right? Yeah.
You know,
I think that's introverted thinking.
But the ISTJ above that, they're for the community, like an NJ of certain kinds. They're loyal, like the STPs, right? And they have a plethora of skills, but it's in one lane. And that one lane puts them under, say, an ENTP in a fight. because the ENTP will fail in that one lane and be like, okay, you clearly have the ground game, but I'll strike the bejesus out of you. Like, I'll grapple you standing up. Like, I have Muay Thai and Bujutsu and you name it, right? Like, but they have Taekwondo super duper handy, right? But if you know martial arts they're designed for specific things, and you know what that specific thing is, that's easy to maneuver around, right? So that's why they're that low on my list. But it's more than just like how they handle the fight itself, or if they can take a punch, etc. Because everything below that, it gets super duper bad.
I'm only with sick them is because they so loyal. Yeah. They'll they'll get dirty with you.
Yeah, that's like you want them in there. Like anything from STJs and up, you do want them on your side in the fight. Like you had to pick, they're not the last ones getting picked. Easy. Mm-hmm. But that's how I would rank that as far as the upper half goes. And after that, it's like the Fs.
And the bottom up.
EFP, INP, SFJ, IFP, ESF, and
I like female NFs. I like that. To me, they're just so feminine. You know, like I'm not talking about the guys. The guys, of course, they can develop some masculinity, I think.
Yeah.
But like the girls, they like, you know, especially. I think NFPs are feminine. You know.
So that's a double-edged sword.
I like it. You know, it's like a good thing.
So that's a double-edged sword because.
I'm talking about the female one, of course. But yeah.
Yeah. If you're still talking about like fight or flight, right? Their initial is flight, but once they're cornered, right?
Yeah,
that subconscious has to pop up. That superego has to pop up.
They can be deadly too. Yeah, they definitely can.
So just because ISF is at the bottom of my list doesn't mean like an ISFP won't like ball you up in the right situation. But it takes.
It's not like you should mess with them. Yeah.
Yeah, that button's so far away, like you'll never touch it before they get out of here. Like you'll. That's not a. Yeah.
Pacifist, like the INFJ pacifist, like they were saying, Martin Luther King. A lot of people think he's an INFJ pacifist. Pretty typical. A lot of people say that.
I can see that. I don't know for a fact, but I can see that.
Yeah, that's what I heard mostly, but I didn't really care too much to try to really look at it. But I agreed, and I was like, whatever. Yeah, but he's a pacifist though. I think INFJ is a pacifist.
I wonder
for the most part.
I wonder if he had to get up to that point though. You know,
I mean, I like, and I'm not even to them. It's a good thing. Like they're proud of it, type thing.
Right, it's not
proud of the fact that they don't. It's not like a thing like they weak. It's just like. They'd rather not. Yeah. They demonstrated they want to try to set an example, for no violence. Usually something like that along the line.
I wonder if he had to get to a point of, I guess, like introspection to get there though. Like if he started out a different way and then
he went through a lot. You can tell. He went through a lot to get. He's pretty well developed.
The biographies you'll read about him won't tell, like, if he got into hood fights or whatever, right? Like, if he ever had to participate in a knife fight or something to protect somebody or just was whatever. But it'll tell you, like, what he was interested in at the time, right? So things like that, you never really know about a person's story and how they got to where they are. Because he wasn't the youngest person when he passed, so his mind state probably came from trials and tribulations, same as yours, to the point where maybe he chose pacifism then, as opposed to earlier. So I wonder what his mind.
I don't think STPs. I don't think we ever choose passivity, really. I don't think we are.
So that ESTP I was telling you about for the course, he I don't know.
I mean, of course, maybe we're not dumb, but some of them might not be smart enough to know not to engage in,
like he's a martial artist too. But then, like, I could see him going the pacifist route altogether, just being like, it's not necessary.
Oh yeah, because he know he can hurt somebody. Probably.
Right. When it's locked in, you don't really need to show it too much.
That's kind of how, because like that's how I used to look at it too. I mean, I'm not a martial artist or nothing, but I know in certain situations, like I'm not somebody to mess with though. I see.
Right.
I would not engage in certain things because I know I could hurt somebody, and I don't want to.
But things.
I'm no martial artist. I just I know a little bit of boxing, but.
Yeah. But intuitively though, it's enough. it does what it needs to do, and then that's just icing on the cake, kind of, when you're like built that way. So interesting. That makes me wonder if, like, because martial arts being a discipline, right? It's just like religion is a discipline, martial arts is a discipline. You need discipline in order to get to most of the things you want in life, to include your own fulfillment, right? You need to find that balance, the middle of the boat, instead of walking from one side to the other. But like, I wonder if those individuals lower on my list would benefit more from martial arts than even the people higher on the list who would naturally go towards martial arts. So like an INFP would benefit more from martial arts than an ISTP would, as far as self-development goes, as far as like soft skills, learning
the philosophy,
to communicate. Like you have to show, shout, shoot, right? Like before you shoot, you need to warn somebody like, hey, bro, this ain't that, you know? But that's if you know you have like a nuke behind you. Like if you don't have a nuke behind you, then it doesn't bother anything if you slap first. You're being slapped fight, hopefully. But if that another person has like a nuke behind them, then you would want that warning. So I would think an INFP would then have to express more and be like, hey, I bottle my emotions. This is a thing. That would also make them a better partner as well. It goes both ways. Not just like enemies, but allies. Right? So maybe martial arts would help them do that. I don't know. Think about it.
Yeah, the philosophy behind it.
Like, you know, looking at that later. Probably suggest that to a couple of individuals. See what that does for them. Thank you for that. So TISENIFE, right? And you said as far as your FE development, you're like on par or still working, or?
What you said, my athletic development?
No, your FE development. You still?
Oh, my FE development.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting up there. I think it's gotten a lot better. I think it's up. It's almost probably as developed as you can get. Like, cause I can use it sometimes, actually, now in useful ways.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. And I get this thing too with FE. Well, I would like over empathize.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's different now. Like, I over empathize now sometimes.
Interesting.
Like,
what's the cutoff for that? When do you stop doing it?
You said what now?
What's the cutoff for that? When you stop doing that? So, like, is it a conscious effort? And if so, when is it difficult to do it to the point that you just don't bother and then you do something more familiar first?
Yeah, it's when it's like the logic is too much, too logical. Like, or if I know like somebody's like just feeling sorry for themselves or something like that along those lines.
The solution just
it's like, oh, it ain't gonna help me to feel sorry for them. They just being, you know.
That's me.
Yeah.
I just had a conversation like that very recently. I had a couple of conversations like that very recently. That's me. I had to check myself and remind myself, like, okay, their process doesn't look like mine, and maybe they have some other things going on that I'm just not aware of, but I see the target clear as day. Like 25 meters is a real easy target to hit. Like if you're within 25 meters of somebody with a weapon, you're too daggone close, right? So like, to me, it's that obvious, but I have to imagine it's a problem for them because it's not that easy. And I have to bring myself back to that and be like, I don't know why, but I'm going to explain it this way. And if I give you the answer and it doesn't resonate, I'm going to let you sit with that for a while. But the seed is there, right? The door is cracked. Take it when you want to. But that helps me kind of relieve myself of the anxiety, or like I'm still waiting for them to catch that, for the pin to drop, right? So the anxiety there, the infuriation, the frustration with it being sensible, but them not following the logic, even though it's mapped out for them. Like I just distance myself from it, and I come back to the canvas later when it's ready to, you know, to be used, I guess. Like more to bestow on them. Like let it marinate. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say too though. Back to we was talking about it earlier. Back to Billy Carr. You need to watch him.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. Like, just by your mind, I think you would. Yeah. He's got so much information. Dude is so smart, man. Mm-hmm. Like, he's like the top. He's like a high. I think he's a high achieving INTP.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know how they got the stereotype of INTP. I don't know if you heard it, but they say INTP procrastinate a lot.
Yeah.
So he don't procrastinate. He get a lot of stuff. But he had a tough childhood. He had no choice but to learn how to not, get stuff done and be. Like, that dude is so smart, man. Like, ridiculous. He talking about, well, he pretty much exposes like the Bible and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Bible it came from something else, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It came from something called ancient like tablets. They copied it from there and then they changed the stories and
Pretty much everything, because everything's cyclical. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But he talk about how, I can't really talk about it on here. I mean, people gonna get confused. Like he lays it out better.
I mean,
but it's crazy sounding.
That's what it is. They'll be all right. They have reference points, and then they can go get the information. So that's up to them. But
he says like how like we really started out as, he thinks that we started out as like, like the what do they say that existed before humans? It was like some type of monkey, but it was a caveman.
Yeah.
They say cavemen are, but I don't know the technical term for it. We started out as cavemen, and then the way we became humans is some aliens came and they mixed our DNA with caveman DNA, and we came out of humans. So they did the whole thing with Adam and Eve. There was they said that logically it was no way that just those two people created the whole human race, because it's incest.
I made sense of that.
It made no sense.
I made sense of that in my mind, right? So
I knew that already though, like growing up.
Right. So what I do with my TI operating in a parent level, like the supposed like ideal level, so it's not overboard, but it's not under as well performing. And then my NE and my TI kind of work together. So maybe I'm reaching it. Obviously, I don't have the proof for this, but the way I would make sense of everything you just said, because everything's connected. Watch me. As opposed to like Anunnaki specifically, right? That would be the aliens. Yeah. And you're not the first SP that I've heard mention them, and there's probably more to it than not, right? But we already know, observably, there was an asteroid that smacked Earth at one point when it was super hot, right? And it was just like a volcano planet. That asteroid contained helium, oxygen, that plus the heat turned into boiling vapors that condensed once it cooled down, because it had those cooler than the hot Earth materials in it and minerals in it, and it kind of cooled the Earth down, right? So that vapor created the ozone, and that created like rain all over the place. It rained for however long. You have the ocean, right? Bet. So now, and we know this, that's scientifically proven, we know that. I don't know how the hell they did that, but whatever. That's just details I don't want to get, but we have it, it's available, there's a reference point, right? So then we have our water, we have our land, and then we have organisms, right? Now, an organism is just another mineral, but it happens to be composed in just the right elemental composite, right? Compounds to make something that operates like bacteria, like a nucleus, right? Things we already observably know exist. So you and I are like rock golems, right? We're just minds in a brain in a meat suit, right? Meat robot. Yeah. But our meat robot isn't made of metal, and rocks is made of organic.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, that's how I see it now.
Right? So
from learning this,
so that asteroid would have been the Anunnaki, if you want to call it that, as far as the reference goes, or however deep you want to go. And I'm aware, like, they have their pedagogues to, like, the Sumerians, where you have Ishtar actually is like a Sumerian god. I forget what her name is. Or Enki turns into, I'm aware. It's just, as far as like taking the positives and then dismissing what doesn't work for you, that's how that kind of works into us popping up, right? As far as Adam and Eve go, you advance however many millions and millions and millions of years, because the Earth is way older than most people recognize. And then you get to the evolution, which would still play a part, right? Big Bang is still a thing. Of whatever organisms we had that continued to grow and thrive and blah, blah, blah. They just did what they did in nature, right? A rock would just sit there until it's broken down and sediment turns into sand and it composites again and becomes a cave or becomes, that's just how things work, right? But eventually you get different pockets of the same idea happening in multiple locations on the planet, right? Because though it hit us in Mexico, the effect was worldwide. right? That's the Gulf of Mexico. That's where the asteroid smacked us. Things we already know. So the effect being worldwide, it smacking us in Mexico and Pangea, I forget exactly where Pangea was as far as separating at that point, right? Or forming in the first place. But everything was close enough that we could migrate around, right? So that was where the bacteria was. Everything cooled down to a point where something livable could survive. We get your plants, you get your fungi, and then you get your organisms, animal kingdom, right? You keep going, and then we get our forefathers, which, if you didn't know, again, provable. Everything that has an organic sentience to it right now on our planet came from like the same 1, 2, I think 3 ancestors. So if you look at everything in the animal kingdom, it all came from like the same one type of thing at one point in time, and it grew, and then it went to different areas, and then the same way human beings go to different areas, and we alter to meet our surroundings, right? Mm-hmm. I have a theory about race as well, like our racial features later, but that's what happens. But they stay there for so long because, again, Earth is that old, that eventually you get little pockets of things that are very like humans, but not humans, mating and then creating the first few humans, right? So theoretically, Adam is not a single person, but the classification of the male gender. More heavily masculine versions of this thing. And then they happen to have these organisms is what I was about to say, but my brain split between two different words. These organs and these composites, right? Your gonads, your whatever, right? And then the other one happen to have ovaries, right? So Eve is not just one person, but it's every female of that type that popped up in these little areas. If you have fungus or mildew, it's not just one spot of mildew, right? It's not just one cell of mildew. It's like little pockets all over the place, right?
Yeah.
Humans are like the closest thing to a virus we have that's not a virus. Yeah.
That's some of the way he thinks. Only difference I say, he was talking about like, he thinks like, you know how when they talk about angels and stuff like that in the Bible, really what they were talking about with aliens, they think, they call them angels because they didn't know what else to call them. They didn't have science and all that back then. And
so again, we don't know.
That was basically,
we don't know.
He thinks that was just stuff that was like millions of years ahead of us technologically.
I have a thought about that as well, right? So you know how static, maybe you don't know because this is not a popular fact, but it is a fact. The static that's on your TV, especially like the old tubes, whatever, like the actual box TVs, that is remnant of the Big Bang, right? That's further proof. That's observable. People have been seeing forever. We just didn't know that's what it was, right? So that's what is actually being received from your TV when it doesn't have an actual frequency to set on, right? That's just photons. Everything that exists is composed of photons. Again, observable, true, proven. We've already got this knowledge, right? If 1 + 1 is 2, we know this too. So that's absurd. That is money.
See, stuff like that, like I know logically it's true, but I try to imagine like what it would look like. It's hard for me to. Even like listen to that guy talk, Billy. He talks about like how everything's like a light wave and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, he'll say like everything's kind of a wave. I can't imagine what I look at stuff as like a physical thing just because, but I know it's true.
So everything is connected, right? As you said that, right? I'm saying these things, but I came to that logic on my own. Other people came to that logic before me. You'll have like a really good idea, and then you'll look it up to see if that's a thing already, and you'll be like, oh, Socrates beat me to it. Whoever else beat me to it, right? MBTI is already a thing, or whatever, right? That's like the mold. That's why I said these little thoughts where people pop up, like so-and-so and so-and-so had a thought. They got together, and boom, humans, right? Getting excited, I gotta calm down. That's why I be fidgeting. My brain goes and then it calms me down. That's what I figure your TI is doing with your SE. Your SE calms your TI down when it's overboard, and that's why you work out.
Yeah.
Right? That's so you'll think through a problem. If you can't think through it, you'll work out until you can think through it. You work out and think, don't you?
Definitely.
Until you get to your flow state, which is what you actually want. You want to release all this TI over energy because it's plaguing you. You can't turn it off. So that SE, everything's connected. Your SE says, let me work some of this energy off and then soothe my brain, right?
Yeah, cool. Pretty much.
Right. So then, back to it. If photons compose everything, a photon is just light beams, right? If you compose it into a certain beam of light, angels, then yeah, you're good. But then you don't know how to digest that mentally, or you don't know how to make sense of it. Then it makes sense that you have your concept of an idea popping up while a light hits you. And now, if that happens on a regular basis, like people see angel numbers, right? Which I've been seeing a ridiculous amount of times in the last month. They're seeing a pattern, right? And that pattern tells you the light is telling you these ideas, because I don't know how else to make sense out of things, right? So like early religion is what we now consider mythology, because people were trying to make sense out of things they did not know how to make sense out of. Magic is just our term for science we don't understand yet, right? Gravity was magic at a point, you know?
Yeah.
Such that it was part of our legal system.
Well, you said that was magic at a point, you said?
Yeah.
What did you say again?
Considered magic, right? Magic's just a concept we have.
It's just stuff we don't understand, right? Because I said the same thing. Like, all magic is, like, a lot of, like, I don't know, they make stuff sound mystical when they don't know how to explain it scientifically.
And then if you lean into the myth part of it, then of course, everything is going to be fabricated. So if you look at it like a
lot of people don't understand that, though.
So if you look at it like an ST, I need to SE or SI my way through it. I need something physical to deal with. And then over time, as you're getting seeds of information and that resonates with what you're experiencing, then you can recognize it, right? And you're like, oh, okay, there's something to this. So you wouldn't have been able to get that information at like 15, 20, and it wouldn't have been because of your age. It would have been because of your experience level, and made sense of this immediately and received it. But you now, having gone through what you've gone through, you're like, oh, I can look back in time and see that happened in my life at this point in time. That makes sense. And ESTJ wouldn't have been looking for that, because they don't want to do that INFP look into yourself thing, right? INFPs actually don't want to do that either, but they go the opposite direction, where they go to FI, right? And they start looking for the mystic in things that don't have mystic. Hence your irrational and rational. Everything's connected. Okay, look. But to wrap it up, so if that's the pattern you see, is I have these thoughts when light pops up. You can look this up. There's different religious concepts, Kabbalah, right, which is Jewish, or like an offshoot of it. There's certain Abrahamic scholars. There are prophets in multiple religions. There's Arabian scholars as well. Ibn Arabi, I think, for instance, or Rumi, or people that people know. They all come across the same stuff, right? And they depict it differently depending on what text they're giving it to other people. But that's the magic portion of it, right? So like, name a holy text, and that's our angel in the metaphor. That's our magic in the metaphor. That's just how we want to relate it based on what we do have. And people lean into the mysticism of it, and then they go, because they don't have the physical to substantiate it. Once we get the physical, then that magic turns into science, right? It's now not just in the Quran that we wash ourselves and keep ourselves bathed on a regular basis and stay away from individuals who have this pattern or this pattern. Now it just makes sense to do that because we know what bacteria is.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Now it's not just in the Bible that lepers stay over there because they get other people sick. No, we know what that is now. You know?
Right. But people don't get that though. Like, you try to explain that to people, they just like, I don't know, they don't get it.
So then if you
they think like they just read stuff in the Bible is magic. Back then you used to have magic. We don't have magic now. Like, that's how they think look at it. Like, no, it's like they looking at the same stuff we looking at. They just didn't understand it. Like,
now if you read into the light beams, right? If you've ever looked at a light beam, like straight at a light beam, which but if you have, you'll notice it goes in multiple different directions, right? As it comes towards you. It doesn't just come straight at you, it goes everywhere. And it's so focused in certain directions that you see actual concentrations of photon, right? Concentrations of light. So if we look at a book and it says an angel has 100 wings, or has 6 wings, or has 12 wings, or is a ring in itself with eyes or whatever. That's just little twinkles, the eyes, and their wings, right? The light beams. The ring itself might be the center focus, which anybody who's looked at a rainbow will see like the little beams of halos on a rainbow.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that thought,
my phone is. I might need to charge my phone for a little bit. Think about that.
Do what you gotta do.
But would you be into
double parter?
But would you be interested in talking to ICJ as well? Like all three of us on there? I'm gonna try to get him.
Why not? Yeah.
He's here now. He just texted me like an hour ago. I'm trying to.
When you want?
Yeah, I don't got another. I only brick I'm using is for the actually a light right here.
Yeah.
I'm using it for that light. So like I can't use it for my charger.
When do you want to do that? You want to do that now?
Yeah, we can. Like when your next day you got, man?
Calendar. And my phone in front of me.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to see if I can get him on here. At least he said I asked him. You know how the introverted too, but it's like you know how they are.
Yeah, 2 days from now. Saturday.
I want you to see how ICJs can be. Yeah. Because around me he'll be more like he's not like the ICJs you probably met, honestly. Like, because there are different types of course. You probably, I don't know. Maybe you had, I don't know how many different types of ICJs you like.
I don't know. But we'll find out.
Yeah, I'm going to try to see if you want to get on there. Okay. Yeah, my battery about to, let me see what it is at. You see how much time I got. So what now?
I said I'll wrap this and then I'll send it to you.
All right, man. Cool. Let me try to charge my phone a little bit. I'm going to try to see if you get on. Did you say you still got Saturday or?
Yeah, Saturday's cool. That's the next
we can get, I'm going to try to get them on.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let me go ahead and, but yeah, go ahead and send it to me same way you did last time.
I'll do that.
All right, man.
All right.